and welcome to today's webinar where Splunk will share the ways you can gain better visibility of your customers' infrastructure and application environments with Splunk for Application Management. In today's session, we have two presenters from Splunk, Keegan Dubbs from the Solutions Marketing side and Tom Martin from our IT Markets team. Keegan's going to start us off with a quick overview of Splunk for Application Management, and then she'll introduce Tom, who will present a live demo. For the last 15 minutes, we'll host our usual Q&A session. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items. First, our legal department has asked me to show you this slide with the usual disclaimers. Second, if you have any questions during today's presentation, please put them directly into the Q&A section of WebEx and direct your questions to all panelists. We will address all your questions at the end of the presentation, and all lines are going to remain muted during the presentation. If you happen to run into any technical issues, you can contact us through the Q&A widget for help as well. One question I'll answer for you right off the bat is, yes, we will be recording this, and an email will be sent out within a few days. And finally, there are a couple polling questions sprinkled throughout our presentation today. We'd love to hear back from you about any application management related challenges you're facing. So please keep an eye out for the polling widget below and share your experiences with us. With that, Keegan, I will transfer the mic to you, and the floor is going to be yours.
Great. Thank you, June, so much for that introduction. So as June said, yes, we'll be covering today how Splunk can help you with any of your application management-related challenges. So to get started, really all application management challenges can be boiled down to one key thing. They're all related to providing and maintaining an outstanding customer experience. And at Splunk, we want to help empower our users to deliver a great and complete customer experience to their end users. And there are several ways that Splunk can help monitor and measure the customer experience. So the first is around maximizing the availability of business-critical services. According to IDC, an hour of downtime can translate to $500,000 to $1 million in lost opportunity. The second is around response time. If you think about it, at about 1/10 of a second, application performance is nearly seamless, but if you extend that out to 1 second, your users will have enough mental break to realize there is a stop and start with your website or application. And all the way at 5 seconds, you've opened the door for people to leave your site. And at 10 seconds, it's likely that they're going to move away from your application, and they might write a negative review, and they're likely not going to come back. The third aspect is a reduction in mean time to resolution, or MTTR. This is focusing on the idea of troubleshooting to find and fix problems faster. For most companies, if you were able to do more to rapidly pinpoint problems, you would reduce the cost of downtime significantly. And this stems from the fact that about 50% of downtime is attributed to a lag time between figuring out that a problem exists and then figuring out where that problem is actually located. So therefore, faster troubleshooting equals less revenue lost and more uptime. The fourth and final aspect of customer experience that we like to talk about is more around planning and capacity challenges. So this is the idea of making sure you have the right type of infrastructure capacity to support spikes in traffic. Especially if you're looking at seasonal businesses, like those related to holiday businesses or higher traffic at those points, it's absolutely critical to make sure you have the right infrastructure requirements to handle customer load. So these are by no means new problems to solve, and the question might be, why haven't we solved these problems already? Well, the answer is that today's application environments are extremely complex and only getting more complex as we move forward. Silos complicate the way that applications are delivered and supported. Applications or business services typically span multiple components that are provided by different vendors. And with the advent of virtualization, containerization, and the cloud, applications may span both on-prem data centers as well as off-premises cloud environments. Due to this added complexity, traditional tools are not sufficient to manage such a distributed and constantly changing environment. We can also anticipate that the complexity outlined here will be trending up in the future. As companies move from the classic monolithic architecture and three-tier architectures of the past into more of a microservices-based architecture, the problem's only going to become more complex and more difficult to monitor and manage. Fortunately, this is where leveraging the Splunk platform can help add visibility. So what does application management look like before Splunk? Well, before Splunk, there was little visibility between the silos. Point solutions that monitor a specific component but don't paint the full picture of how the components relate to each other results in vendor sprawl and teams operating in silos. The issue here is that while you might get visibility into the individual components, it's difficult to see how the pieces work together. The less understanding we have of how the components relate to each other, the less visibility we have into the overall service, and therefore the longer it takes to resolve problems and prevent downtime. But with Splunk, you can turn all these red boxes green. Splunk provides a platform approach for application management and allows you to report on all your metrics and see it in one place. With Splunk, you can bring all of your machine data together and visualize it in a centralized location. You're able to correlate and make sense of all of the information in one single location. With the extension of our product offerings, customers now have the ability to create custom KPIs and better monitor SLOs and SLAs. With various product integrations, users can ingest wire data to see the network impact on business transactions and better monitor their mobile applications, as well as monitor their AWS or other cloud providers. And lastly, you can now bring in the very source types you're monitoring and correlate them with business data for enhanced business context. Beyond just the Splunk platform, we offer a multitude of Splunk add-ons, templates, and apps to help accelerate the value from your machine data. Using add-ons and apps, you can harness the power of the Splunk platform and correlate data across all layers of the stack. Installing apps is super quick and easy. The Splunk-based interface guides you through the steps, and many apps have wizards that help you collect and index data. Many apps have pre-built visualizations as well as dashboards to get you started, and in addition to the pre-built apps, customers or developers can leverage the Splunk SDKs and REST APIs to build custom apps. So whether you're pulling in data from VMs, containers, mobile applications, or your cloud services, with Splunk, you're able to bring all of the data into one location and index and analyze across the entire technology stack, and provide insights for all users. So to wrap things up, by leveraging Splunk for application management, you are able to provide a better customer experience to your end users in 3 key ways. Splunk allows you to transcend the silos, to be able to collect, index, and analyze machine data and multiple source types in one location. Second, with Splunk, you can ask any question of your data. You don't need to know upfront what you're looking for. You can just go in and start to troubleshoot based on one piece of information like a timestamp. And third, excuse me, Splunk allows you to liberate your data. Anyone from line of business owners to performance engineers can be enabled to use Splunk and access data that may not have been previously available. With Splunk, you can get data that's relevant off of production environments and make it available to a wide number of stakeholders to empower the organization. Splunk helps you become less reactive and more proactive with improved business context and visibility. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Tom Martin, who will now give a brief demo of Splunk, because I think you've all heard enough from me. So Tom, you can go ahead and take it away.
All righty, thanks, Keegan. Let me grab the ball here, and I will share my screen. And can you confirm you're seeing my screen?
Yep, you're good on my end.
Awesome. So as Keegan said, my name is Tom Martin, and I work in the IT Markets Global team here at Splunk, where we focus on Splunk specifically for IT use cases. So in today's demo, we're going to explore the Splunk user interface and the search processing languages, which we call SPL. We're going to look at a few of those applications that Keegan mentioned and how these all fit together to provide you with visibility across your entire application stack. As Keegan mentioned, Splunk really is a machine data platform. And, whoops, let me go back one here. Sorry about that. Splunk is it's a machine data platform, and we really are all about bringing data in from any source in its native format and providing the ability to search, correlate, report, monitor on all of your applications and all of the services that make up your applications. Today will be the sources of the data that we'll look at all revolve around the application management space. So we'll be looking at data from web server logs and data from APM vendors like AppDynamics and Dynatrace and New Relic, caching providers like Akamai, and even down to the operating system level and AWS. So an important point here is to keep in mind that Splunk really does have no predefined schema. We do what's called schema on read as opposed to schema on write. And what that means for you is if you think back to the old days of having siloed data where you wanted to pull everything together, there was an awful lot of ETL processing that had to go on. With Splunk, that simply doesn't need to exist. And when data elements change and new data arrives, it's instantly available and searchable. At Splunk, we like to say that we index every character, number, letter, punctuation mark, and space, and it's instantly available for you to search and query any way you like. Our goal for today's webinar is really for you to walk away with a better understanding of how Splunk can be used to manage your applications and those supporting services. So to get started, I see from the poll questions that we have a fair amount of attendees that are new to Splunk. So with apologies to the Splunk ninjas out in the audience, I'm going to start with a quick overview of the Splunk UI. And you'll see it's actually quite easy to navigate and use. So what you're looking at here is the main Splunk user interface. And down the left-hand side, we have applications that have been installed and that I have access to. So we have an application for APM, we have one for Akamai, one for AWS, there's a machine learning toolkit that we'll talk about in a little bit. But really at the core of Splunk is this search and reporting app. This is the default app. So if we look at everything inside of Splunk, this is all of my data. So I've got about 70 million events in here. And if I look at the data summary, you're going to notice that all Splunk data has a few things in common. For one, everything has a host where the data comes from. And if I just scroll down this list, you'll see I've got data coming from New Relic. I've got things coming from AWS. I've got database log files coming in. I've got Nagios data, and I've got web server data, just to name a few. We've also got everything has a source type. So I have authentication logs. I have web logs. I have NetApp logs, sysout logs, MySQL logs. And then we have things called source types. And what source types allow us to do is to really take a look at a number of different inputs, data inputs coming from maybe the same source, and look at them together so I can combine things very quickly and easily. For instance, if I look at this access combined, this is data coming from my web logs. So you notice here I've got everything, I should say, is time series, and this allows us to correlate the data from all these different data sources in one central place. So as I go through here, you can see the search language. All I did was point and click there. And if I wanted to combine things, I can say, look at that, or I can do another source type equal, let's say, DF. Now I'm seeing all of the data very quickly. You notice that I've got things like bytes, which is bytes free, and these are the top 10 values. So you can combine and contrast. If I've got another data type coming in that's CPU metrics, and I can see that for any time period I want. So right now I'm querying two different types of data, and for the last 60 minutes, I can just as easily make it the last 15 minutes, or I can make it the last 24 hours. And as you can see, the performance it really does allow you to ask questions of your data. So I'm going to go back to our last 60 minutes here, and I'm going to go back to my access combined. And let's talk a little bit about the data that we're actually seeing. So what you see here is a timeline, and these, because I'm at a 1 hour interval, each one of these blocks represents 1 minute. And if I want to see what happened in that minute, I simply click it, and everything down below is filtered to that 1 minute. Click it again, and I'm back to everything. If you notice down the left-hand side here, here's our three standard fields of host, source, and source type. But more importantly, I've got some interesting fields down here that Splunk is able to notice just from looking at the data. So I have things like action. Remember, this is a web log. So I've got remove, add to cart, purchase, change quantity, and view. I've got an address, which is a home address of whomever is using my website. I've got a category, so I've got miscellaneous and category. If I scroll down here, I can see what's the customer's value for this particular person. So we're able to augment data from multiple different sources. And I can even come down here and let's say that I want to find out how my application is working. I've got a nice little status field here. And you can see that I've got a number of different values. So just by clicking here, I can say, show me my top values over time. Now you'll notice what happened was I got a nice line chart here that shows me my 200s, my 401s, 404s, and 503s, which is nice, but this is not really a visualization that I want to use. So let me go in here and I'll just choose a bar graph. And that's a little bit better, but let's go in through here. Let's make this stacks. So what did I just do? I just created a way for me to see these 503 errors as a percentage of the total requests that I got in on my web server at any given point in time. And you notice that I had a little spike here. Well, I'm gonna save this off because I want to come back to this later because we're going to talk about how I pull all of this data together and build a dashboard. So let's just add this to a brand new dashboard, and I will call this App Management 101. And I'm going to share this out. I can give it a description if I want, and the panel title here is going to be HTTP response codes. And I can put the stats in, or I can put the chart. I kind of like the chart, so let's go with that. I could choose to view the dashboard here, but for now, let's just know that I saved it off into a place. So if I go back to my events, you notice my events are always here. I can look at the statistics, so I can see how many 200 errors compared to 501s. I can get the raw data, and the actual data is here anytime I want. Now here's a quick question for everybody on the phone. If anybody has ever tried to do a troubleshooting session, what's one thing you'd always like to see? Gee, I wish I knew if this was an error, what was happening just before that happened. Splunk makes that very easy because I can come in here and say, show me before this time. And what I'm going to see now are the events that happened plus or minus 5 seconds of that other event. So I'm going to go back to, just go back to my presets here, and I'll go back to the last hour. But it makes it very, very easy to just click a time and say, give me plus or minus 5 seconds or minutes or days or weeks or hours or milliseconds. So you can see it's very easy to troubleshoot using Splunk. I want to do something a little bit different here, though, because this time chart is nice. But what I really want to do is there are a number of different aggregation functions or statistical functions. And I'm going to change here to stats. And instead of counting, let's do a sum. And I have a price field in my data. And let's just sum the price. So this is the price of everything that's come through my e-commerce app on the website. So in the last hour, 60 minutes, I have a price of $19,752. Well, maybe I want to label that a little bit differently. So let's call that revenue. That's a little bit better for my line of business people that want to see this. And if I want, I can even do this rather than doing just stats. I can go back to my time chart. And what am I going to get now? If I look at the visualization, not a real fan of that bar chart. Let's go back to a line chart now. And what I've got is I'm charting my revenue over time by looking at my application web logs. So this is nice. This is great, and I'd love to save this. So let me just save this out as a dashboard panel, and I'll make it on my App Management 101. And I'll do the line chart, save. Not going to go to my dashboard just yet because there's one other thing that I want to talk about, and that is a key differentiator between Splunk and any other monitoring tool that you've seen, which is, and we call it machine learning. You've probably heard a lot about machine learning, artificial intelligence, that kind of thing in the industry today. And Splunk makes that very easy. So I'm going to pipe this into a predict command, and I'm just going to say, predict that field that I named revenue. And what's going to happen? You notice that this is the upper 95th prediction, upper 95th percentile. This is the lower 95th. So somewhere between this, plus or minus 5 percentage points, I want to see, is my actual revenue in that bound? And if it is, what can I see going forward? Well, this is only just a few minutes. So I want to do, I want to add a future time span equal to, let's do 30. And now I'm starting to trend this stuff out even further. If I don't like the particular algorithm that's being used, I can change that too. And I can say algorithm LLP, which is a trending algorithm. That is to say, if I put an equal sign in. So I can use combinations. I can use trending algorithms. I can use a number of different, this is a different algorithm that takes, this does not take seasonality into effect. This does. So you can see there's a number of different things that you can do. I'm going to go ahead and save this as first a dashboard panel in our app management guy. And then I'm going to go back out and say, this would be really nice to save as a report. And let's call this our revenue prediction, report. And in this case, I do want both the line chart and the statistics. And if I save this, I can go ahead and schedule this report. And now I can say I want to schedule this to run every day at 1 a.m. Priority is low. The scheduling window don't really need one. And now I can schedule this up, and this report can go out every day at 6 o'clock. So that just should give you some feel for what's possible. To me, I think it's just one of the best things in Splunk is the ability to apply machine learning in anything you do with Splunk. We do have those apps that we talked about are on Splunkbase, and the machine learning toolkit is right here. So you can just feel free to go out to splunkbase.splunk.com, and you can search for pretty much any kind of app or visualization that you like. If I go back to my revenue report and I want to, actually let's go back here, and I'll go back to my search for just a moment. And if I want other visualizations, so you can see we have a number. We have graphs and charts and gauges and bubble charts and a number of things, but I can also find more by just visiting Splunkbase. So when I go to Splunkbase, I can see there are a number of other visualizations out here. So if you want a geo heat map, if you want a tree map visualization, you want a scatter plot, you want a water gauge custom visualization, there are a number of these out there. I'm not going to go into depth on any of those right now, but just know you can change these and make them look any way you like. So imagine applying that machine learning to things like your capacity planning coming in from your server monitoring, applying it to your AWS billing forecast to see maybe what your future bills might look like from AWS, or maybe you're using Akamai and you want to know what your cache hit rate is and you want to plan that out in the future. All of that is possible by using Splunk and the apps that are available. I'm going to go, so this is the high-level overview of what, of Splunk in general. I'm going to switch now to tying data together from multiple different sources. And what we're looking at here is bringing together data from our APM tools. In this case, this data happens to come from New Relic's RESTful API. I'm bringing data in from my web logs. I can see the average response time. I can see how many errors I had in the last minute. Using Akamai, I can see how many errors were thrown by geographic region coming from Akamai. So in this case, I've got errors coming from these different locations, and that's where the errors are coming from. I can also use machine learning, as you just saw, to project out my revenue. I can see which products are being purchased by product ID, or I could just as easily reach out to a database using what we call DB Connect, and I could convert this product ID into a product name. And I can see with a sparkline graph what the trending is in one place, and I can see where those purchases are happening and what product those people are buying. If I scroll down a little bit, you can see I've got data coming from the load balancers. I've got my APM requests coming in, and I've got all the way down to the web server monitoring. All of these dashboards, you saw, they're very easy to create, and they're also very easy to link. So if I click on my web servers here, I'm going to drill down into a screen that shows me the actual data coming from my servers themselves. So in this case, I've got the average CPU and the maximum CPU over time. I've got the average disk and max disk. I've got memory. I've got netstat, all kinds of good stuff there. If I wanted to deep dive this, I could click this, and anytime I click in one of these, I'm going to go right back to the search that got me that data. So if I see that one of these particular web servers, web server 01, is pegging at 100%, let me make this verbose mode so that I get the individual events. And as I look at this, I can see that everything is host web server 01. So if I click this guy, I can add that right into my search. So if I come here and say host equals web server 01, point, click, these are my events. If I look at those events, I can say what happened plus or minus 5 seconds from that event. And if I wanted to add other data sources, I could do that very easily as well. So that's just a little bit of a take on how you can go from a high-level dashboard down to drill down into a detailed dashboard into a troubleshooting session. I'm going to switch gears a little bit now and talk about data coming from third-party providers. In this case, I've got an APM screen. APM tools are awesome at doing bytecode instrumentation and getting down to the method level details. You can see here that I can bring in summary details like what's the ID of the application, what's the name of the application, is it currently running and reporting, what's the health status, is it green, is it red, is it yellow. I've got AppDex scores, and then here's an interesting tidbit where I can say, let's track my error rate over time and forecast out what I think my error rate is going to do based on what I've seen in the past. Same kind of thing for forecasting traffic. Again, you can apply these machine learning techniques to any data that Splunk collects. So this is not just for one vendor. You can see here I'm pulling data in from AppDynamics, I'm pulling data in from Dynatrace, I'm pulling data in from New Relic. It just doesn't matter. We do this very similar kind of thing with Akamai. So there's an app for Akamai. I'm going to jump over to Splunk base again here very quickly and just say if I wanted to find an app for Akamai, here we go. I can go into the Splunk app for Akamai, and it's going to bring up a description, the details. I can download it and install it. It's as simple as click this button and install it into Splunk itself. If I want to look even further, let's say I want to look for web app technologies. I can see I've got a Splunk add-on for Amazon, Web Analytics, SideView, Oracle WebLogic, Splunk add-on for WebSphere. So you can see there are literally thousands of these add-ons out on Splunk base. So I'll go back to the Akamai application now. What you're seeing here is the cache hit ratio by number of requests and by amount of traffic. If you're using, I would bet most people on this call either have heard of or are using Akamai today. And if these are very important numbers, and the ability to pull this in and see maybe where your traffic is coming from. So maybe since I've got a fairly large group of individuals hitting my servers here, I want to up my investment there. I can see how many unique visitors I've got, the average download speed for each location. All this data is available to you through RESTful APIs. It's just a matter of pulling it all together. You may be in a situation where you've got a knock and you want to put up on a big screen so you can see in real time what's going on. This is a really nice screen that many of our customers have up on the knock, which shows where their requests are coming from. Again, there are tons of visualizations out there for the data, and bringing the data in is as simple as installing the app and the technology add-on to pull in the data that you want. I'm going to go one other place here, and that is into our AWS Overview. And this is, again, another app that's pulling data in from Cloud Monitor and CloudWatch and CloudTrail. And you can see what are the configuration changes that are going on in my AWS environment. So you can see I've got an overview here of the updates. I can see how many unused EBS volumes, what's the total EBS size in gigabytes, where is a majority of my CloudTrail activity. In this case, it's in the Pacific Northwest. I can also go in and see a security overview. So if I want to see what's going on with regard to, say, traffic analysis or security, I can do that very easily as well. So you can see each of these applications have the ability to pull data in, and they have visualizations that can help you monitor your applications in a more holistic approach. I can take any of this data and I can pull it all together any way I want. So if I go back to here and I go to my dashboards, remember we were creating the dashboards earlier, this App Management 101. So I've got my response codes here, and so I can tie the difference between my 503 codes, and I can see that this is my revenue, and this is my revenue being projected out in the future. But what if I wanted to change this up? It's as simple as point and click. I can drag and drop this guy up here. I can add other panels or inputs. If I want to add a pre-built panel, for instance, where I want to grab, I don't know, the Akamai API errors or the errors by geo, this little map that we saw before, I just click, and then I can close that down, and I can move this around and put things anywhere I want. So you can see it's very easy if you need to build these types of dashboards. So I'll save that out. And I've got one or two last bits that I'd like to show you, and that is, let me go back to our revenue number here, and I'll open that in a search. Give me just a minute, and here's my visualization of revenue. So you can see we're floating between a couple $100 and maybe 500 or 600. And another thing that I can do with any of these searches that I have is I can create an alert. So I can call this the revenue alert. I can share it in the app, or I can make it private. I can schedule it, or I can make it real time. If I schedule it, I can say I want to run this every hour at 15 minutes past the hour. And instead of triggering on the number of results, what I really want is I really want to take the results and say search. And if I say sum of price is less than 100, just give me one alert message and then suppress that for, I don't want 60 seconds. How about 60 minutes? And then I can add an action to that where I can send it to AWS, or I can send it through a webhook, or I can send an email, or I can send it to a log, or anything I need to. And I will save that guy. So as you can see, oops, pulls that guy out. So as you can see, it's very easy to pull all of this data together, and I can go anywhere I need. I can go to my IT troubleshooting app here, and when I look at the dashboards, I can look at my application health, and I'm pulling in data from APM tools, from web logs, from server logs, from Akamai, from AWS, everything in one place. So finally, today, the last thing I will leave you with is a quick look at the machine learning toolkit. You can pull this down from Splunk Base as well. And we saw how to do a little bit of that forecasting earlier, but I'll show you this detect outliers in mobile phone activity. So it's not just being able to predict things in the future. Here you can see that we can detect outliers. So on my mobile phone, I have 16 incoming calls for this one, and 9 of those were missed. That's an outlier. If I want to see what the actual search language is for that, it's actually pretty simple. So this is just, I'm using a lookup. I'm going to format the timestamp, and then I'm going to run, just like we ran predict, we can run anomaly detection, incoming versus missed calls and outgoing, and then just count the outliers. So the machine learning toolkit is a great way to go through and try different algorithms, and you can use this on any data that you have as well. So it gives you a really easy way to build these out where you can forecast, you can cluster, you can find outliers, you can do predictions. It just opens up a whole new world to managing your applications and being able to be proactive rather than reactive to anything that may happen in your environment. And with that, I will hand the ball back over to Keegan. And Keegan, the ball is yours.
Great. Thank you so much for that overview, Tom. That was really helpful. Just so everyone knows, again, if you have any other questions as they're coming in, please put them in the Q&A, and we will address them momentarily. So as Tom just went over, Splunk software can help you identify and pinpoint code-level issues at any stage of the development and release process. So with Splunk, you can find and fix bugs quickly so that you can ship products faster, gain insights into application usage as well as user behavior, and get real-time mission-critical visibility into every step, system, and process involved in building, testing, and shipping new products to your customers. Splunk's universal machine data platform empowers you to consolidate all information, regardless of source or source type, within a unified console to find the root cause of an issue, as well as proactively manage events and incidents and reduce resolution time. Finally, I'd also like to call out that you're going to be seeing a couple last polling questions. We have one specifically for anyone who's a net new customer to Splunk around the starter package. Just so you know, that starter package would include education training as well as your Splunk license, professional services, and user comp tickets. So if you have any feedback, please put that either in the Q&A section or underneath the open-ended questions of the polling questions. So finally, if you liked what you saw today, you found it interesting, we really encourage you to get up and you can try Splunk for free today. You can download it for free from the website or check out Splunk Cloud as an option. We also have Splunk Lite, which is the power of Splunk for smaller IT environments. So finally, at this point, we will shift the conversation over to Q&A. We'll have about 15 minutes reserved there, and I believe June is going to hop back on and start moderating some of the Q&A questions. Thanks again, everyone, for your time.
Thanks, Keegan and Tom. Like Keegan said, we're going to move into our Q&A portion of the webinar. If you have any questions, you can input them directly into the Q&A section of WebEx. So we've got a couple of questions here lined up. First is, I have a physically diverse network. Can I build my Splunk network with servers at the various sites? Tom, can you answer that for us?
I can, yes. Splunk is set up where you can put what we call forwarders, universal forwarders, on as many or as few servers as you like. And you can run, it's a clustered architecture, so you run search head clusters across, and it's high availability, load balance, scalable, everything that you would expect of a true enterprise solution.
Awesome, thank you. Another question here. So Tom, when you talk about pulling in data from the APM tools or anywhere else for visualizations, does that mean that you are indexing the data against your daily licensing allowance?
Yes. So it's pulling data in through the RESTful APIs, and that data is much like any other data that you're pulling from any other data source.
Okay, thank you.
Which is, and just to expand on that a little bit, which is why I would not recommend pulling in all of the data. Just pull in the high level, the summary. So at a business transaction level, you're going to want the response times, the number of errors for the key transactions or business transactions that you're looking at.
Awesome. Thank you. Another question here, were all the tools that were shown available with Splunk Enterprise?
Everything with the exception of the APM module that I showed. We do have a module for App Dynamics, or an app for App Dynamics. We have one for Dynatrace. We are consolidating those into a single app that will work across multiple APM vendors, because what we've heard from our customers is, I have pockets of AppD, I have pockets of New Relic, I have pockets of CA Wiley. How can I see all this stuff together? So that's what we're in the process of pulling together right now.
Great. Let's see. Do you have, Keegan, do we have a training program for Splunk enthusiasts this month?
Yes, so if you're interested in learning more about Splunk or any of the different education programs, you can actually go to the Splunk education website, and we, throughout the month, run different regular classes, so those can help you get up and running more rapidly, and we actually have different certifications. So the first is what we call our power user. After that, it's the admin. After that, it is the Splunk architect, and we do run those programs regularly. So they will be available this month as well as other months moving forward.
Great. Here's another question. Can I have Splunk alert me if, or at least visualize, if an actual performance value exceeds that value's projected range?
Absolutely. When we ran those projections, if I would have clicked on the statistical data, you'll see each value, and you can easily run that through a search and say, show me where this is higher than A is higher than B, or B is higher than B, or any combination you like.
Awesome. Okay, how does the dashboard handle the fact that the data is split up among several sites?
So the way Splunk is set up is you can have a series of search head clusters, and the search will be passed down to all of those search heads, and the data will be returned to the UI. It doesn't matter where the data is.
Okay, great. Okay, if I happen to have a bank of servers behind a load balancer, can I have a visualization that shows if a particular web server's performance values significantly exceeds the corresponding parameters of the other servers?
I'm going to hesitate a minute because that was a long question. The answer is yes, and you can have either the individual response times from each individual server reporting in, and from there you can do a compare and contrast and see which ones are, you can track them all in the same chart or graph and see which one is out of line.
Great, thank you. Let's see. I see you support pulling data from Dynatrace and AppDynamics. What about CA-APM, formerly called Wiley?
So that one is under development. We should have that hopefully within the quarter. I'm literally working with them right now.
Great. Are these apps included in, oh, I think we already answered this question. We've got another question here. How is Splunk licensed? Keegan, would you be able to answer that one for us?
Yeah, definitely. So the Splunk licensing model is based on ingestion, and the more you ingest, then the price goes down further, but it would be then the total amount of data that you're pulling in on a monthly basis, or excuse me, on a daily basis. And when you try Splunk for free, the license that we give you for the 30 days with that trial allows you to pull in, I believe it's up to 50 gigs for the first couple days that you're working with Splunk.
Great. Another question here, can we monitor if the JVM applications are running or not?
Yes, what you'll see is if you have the JVMs or the applications reporting in, they will simply not be reporting, and they will show up as gaps in the graphs.
Awesome. Can Splunk be integrated with NoSQL databases like Cassandra or HBase?
Depending on what you mean by integration, yes. Integration, for instance, we have plugins, I believe, for things like Redis and MongoDB, and I'm not sure if we have one for Cassandra or not, but we could find that out quickly enough. to monitor those. If you're looking to pull data from Cassandra into Splunk, we can certainly do that as well. If you can use a database connector, like a JDBC type driver, we can also enhance data or enrich the data in Splunk by calling out to Cassandra to get additional descriptive details.
Excellent, thank you. Another question here for Tom. How can Splunk be used to monitor SaaS solutions that do not provide an adapter or other means to pull in data?
If almost every SaaS solution that I have seen has a RESTful API interface at some point, and so that's our preferred method of pulling data in. If not, there has to be a way to get at the data. You could do things like screen scraping technologies and write a Python script to execute a curl or a wget and then parse through the data and send it into Splunk. So it can be done, time and effort.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see.
Lots of good questions.
Yeah. There's so many questions coming in. I'm trying to scroll through them. Okay, here's one. Can you comment about graph data or graph data models with Splunk?
So we don't have a GraphDB, I think is where the question's headed. We don't have that today. It is something that we may look at in the future, but as of right now, we don't have any GraphD native integrations that I'm aware of. TBD.
Okay, how about, can Splunk be utilized to analyze data security-related traffic patterns and trends?
Yes. So we have Splunk. One of Splunk's largest applications really is our Splunk Enterprise security, which is an entire offering wrapped around security and user behavior analytics. So yes, security data is a great use of Splunk.
Okay, great. Another question here. If I have monitoring microservices on PaaS, does Splunk agents have to be enabled for each microservice or the PaaS platform as a whole?
Generally speaking, if you're deploying containers or microservices onto a PaaS type environment, those containers will log to a common logging facility. And if you're using, for instance, Docker, baked into Docker itself is a Splunk logger. So you can just enable Splunk logging inside of your Docker engine. Splunk also has integrations with Google Compute Engine and Amazon and Azure.
Thank you.
No problem.
Let's see. Real-time searches are very resource intensive. Do you have any advice on setting up alerting in an efficient manner?
I will punt that and say that we do have best practices and professional services that can help you better with how to set those up and how to do those things according to a best practices model. But yes, real-time searches are a bit more intensive than looking at, say, the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or last 1 minute, simply because it's a constant update.
Thank you. Another question here. Is Splunk Enterprise supposed to do the application management and performance management, or do we need to buy an extension?
No, everything that I showed today is free as a free download from Splunkbase, with the exception of the APM module that is the prototype right now.
Okay. Thank you. So one more question here. Are there real-world use cases where separate APM tools were consolidated with Splunk, and how was that accomplished?
Yes is the answer. We actually have many customers that are integrating APM data into Splunk, and the integration is, in some cases, bidirectional, meaning the response times, the errors, the key transactions, the business transactions, the end-user experience metrics, those are being pulled into Splunk from the APM vendors. And then if we notice things, we can also go back and open tickets or create a scripted kind of like a webhook interface where I have one customer in the Midwest that is integrating Dynatrace with Splunk today, and they actually notice they alert on their errors out of Splunk, and then drill into Dynatrace to actually go see which method of which class the problem is occurring in.
Awesome, thank you. Another question here, can Splunk export analyzed data that it calculates out to either a flat file or another database connector to be further analyzed using other outside systems, such as using R to analyze data sets or to perform non-real-time analysis on the exported data?
Yes. The reports that get scheduled, you can set those reports up to send out as a PDF or just to send out the reporting data, or from any of the charts or graphs that we showed, you can export the data from those as well.
Okay, let's see. Another question here is, how long would it take me to build a dashboard for my boss?
So I hope that through the course of the demo, you were able to see just how easy it is to build the dashboards. It literally is point and click. You can rearrange things. You can create whatever searches you like. You can share those searches and those dashboard panels between applications. The one that we built today in the App Management 101 had a panel from AWS and had a panel from Searching Weblog, and I think I even had something in there from Akamai. So you can mix and match, and it really is fairly simple and straightforward.
Great, thank you. One more question here. Do you have self-monitoring for the log forwarding agents, especially needed when it's deployed on hundreds of servers?
Self-monitoring for the forwarders themselves, you can certainly forward in the health metrics of the servers themselves, and you can search the data around those. So I'm not exactly sure what the question was getting to, but yes, you can Splunk any data that comes in, and we can certainly pull in the operating system metrics and or the state of health metrics from the forwarders themselves.
Is there a limit to how many data sources you can put into Splunk?
As only in how much data you can store. We have customers that are well over the terabyte mark.
Awesome. Okay, another question here. There were no examples using mainframe data. Why not?
Simply because I don't have a mainframe in my demo environment. If you go out to Splunk base, you can just do a quick search for sync sort. That's probably our most popular one. But yeah, you can pull data in from the mainframe as well. It really doesn't matter. Actually, as an example of how flexible the data platform is, we have, I think it's a public story that you can find on the Splunk website of Coca-Cola and how they use Splunk with their free-flow or free-form soda machines. There's also a story about Splunking sensors in the Indianapolis 500 this past May, where 3 of the cars in the race were sending data from their sensors into Splunk, and they were actually using the data to project and predict and make game time decisions or race day decisions, if you will, during the race. Pretty cool stuff.
Very cool. Can we use Splunk for things other than application delivery?
Absolutely. So the focus of today's webinar was application delivery, but I just mentioned the Coca-Cola example. There's the IndyCar example. There's a number of IoT type use cases, and security is a large portion of Splunk's business.
Thank you. One other question here, is syslog streaming a good input to bring data in from a 250 plus development Unix server environment, or are there more efficient ways to bring that data in?
I would probably just go with syslog. There may be more efficient ways, but syslog is easy.
Hey, just to piggyback on that. Yeah, just piggyback on that. So also potentially could be sent over the HTTP event collector, which came out in Splunk 6.4. So that would be another option.
The HTTP event collector that Keegan just mentioned is a way that you can send data directly to Splunk just by sending an HTTP request.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we are reaching the top of the hour, so we are going to close up Q&A for today, so I can give you a couple of final notices for our webinar. I'm sure there are a lot of questions about this, and thank you for your great questions, by the way. In a few days, we are going to be sending out an email with a recording of the webinar and links to other related information. So please look out for that. And thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you at the next Splunk event.